So I know that they're making it harder for me to copy over things. I'm going over time here. I'd like to end this with Amos 9. Okay, let's just read it. It's a short chapter. This is very important. And I'm going to put it into context for you. When God says, are you not the same to me as the Cushites, right? Didn't I bring you out of Egypt and stuff like this? Okay, he's saying you were in that Royal African Falcon martial arts spirit. That's when things came to a head, right? There was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the 12 tribes, right? His 12 children. Okay, so Joseph was taken to Egypt. And because they did him wrong, they were brought to Egypt as well. And Joseph took it easy on them because he cared about them. He wanted them to do the right thing. And they kind of repented. And thus the 12 tribes were laid as a sort of foundation. Though you can argue the foundation is Adam, Noah. I mean, there's a lot of things you can say, but that's one way to look at it. You see how there's different ways to look at it and to describe it. But they all have to be within the boundaries of righteousness and justice. Thus, the reason why Isaiah 28:17 is core scripture. There's no way to interpret the Bible fairly without doing it within the boundaries of righteousness and justice, and Isaiah 28:17 points to that. So Amos 9, Israel to be destroyed. Okay, so what's happening, right? The world is being destroyed and the righteous are being gathered up to heaven with God. And God is explaining it in a certain way. He's allowed it to be explained this way as part of the test. Okay? And so the religious texts themselves, no offense to anybody, are like serpents that are making it complicated for you to see the truth, right? If you're inclined to be evil, you're going to want to believe a fairy tale instead of keeping the greatest commandment, right? Which sums up the law and the prophets. To this day, I've never met a rabbi or any Jew or anybody who would argue that loving God with all your heart magically doesn't sum up the law and the prophets. It does. That's the reason why those laws are made. That's the reason why it was being said. So Israel to be destroyed. I saw the Lord standing by the altar, and he said, strike the tops of the pillars so that the thresholds shake. Bring them down on the heads of all the people. Those who are left I will kill with the sword. No one will get away. None will escape. Now keep in mind, Amos is saying this is how it ends. Right? They won't escape. They won't have a life worth living, and then they'll be marshaled to hell. There will be a process, right? Striking the tops of the pillars. The pillars are symbolic. They can refer to people. They refer to like a reinforcement, right? A reinforcing point. Okay? Things that you pass through so that the thresholds shake. Okay? So it affects the whole structure. It says, bring them down on the heads of the people. Those who are left I will kill with the sword. Not one will get away, none will escape. In the Bible it says things like, it will come down on your own head, right? Your wickedness will rebuke you, right? What you do will harm you. So God will make it so that you reap what you sow, right? You sowed wickedness, Hosea, and so you're reaping disaster. Proverbs 1, right? Your wicked schemes bring calamity and disaster and destruction, spiritual destruction. So the first verse in it makes it clear that the ending isn't this happy ending where everyone, sails off into the sunset on this planet. 2, though they dig down to the depths below, from there my hand will take them. Though they climb up to the heavens above, from there I will bring them down. Though they live in the flesh longer, they're being brought down, they'll die one day, and they'll go to hell. Though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, there I will hunt them down and seize them. Though they hide from my eyes at the bottom of the sea, there I will command the serpent to bite them. Okay, so again, the sea can represent a sea of people, the peoples, the nations, the languages, the multitudes, the languages. Okay, now keep in mind that Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord. He says, there I will hunt them down, right, with these righteous warriors, right, like you see in 1st and 2nd Samuel, where it talks about righteous warrior acts, David and Goliath, warriors who killed a bunch of people single-handedly, figuratively speaking. Okay. Though they are driven into exile by their enemies, there I will command the sword to slay them. I will keep my eye on them for harm and not good. The Lord Almighty, he touches the earth and it melts, and all who live in it mourn. The whole land rises like the Nile, then sinks like the river. I believe it says of Egypt. I think I might have left that out. Okay. bear with me here. I gotta change the mic here. Change the page. Hold the mic in my other hand. It might cause some background noise here. Okay. He builds his lofty palace in the heavens and sets its foundation on the earth. He calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out over the face of the land. The Lord is his name. Okay, so notice he's talking about these mighty waters of Egypt, of the Nile. They also talk about the Tigris and Euphrates, right? The waters of the Euphrates. We see that in Revelation with the trumpets and the bowls. Okay, that these waters dry up to prepare for to make way for the kings of the east. That there's angels that are bound in chains that are released. Okay, so these are figurative ways of explaining that God is going to punish them, and that there's no escaping it. That all these kind of components in nature are evidence that God can punish them in various ways. Right? There's snakes that bite you. There's bears. There's lions. There's sharks. Okay, what have you. So again, he builds his lofty palace in the heavens and sets its foundation on the earth. He calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out over the face of the land. The Lord is his name, right? So what you do on earth is the foundation of your soul and where you're going. Whether you'll be like a stone in the temple of God, right? Whether you'll go to God and be connected to God and be in God and in the Father and in the Son, or whether you're going to go down and sink low, never to rise again. These things are determined by whether or not you obey God through me. Determined. The Lord weighs the heart and the motives, right? Motives, formula, model, output. So again, I'm going to read this part again to make sure you understand the context of Amos 9:7. This is Amos 9:6. He builds his lofty palace in the heavens and sets its foundation on the earth. He calls for the waters of the sea. The waters stand for the peoples, the nations, the multitudes, the language, the spirit, and pours them out over the face of the land. The Lord is his name. Are not you Israelites the same to me as the Cushites, declares the Lord? Did I not bring Israel up from Egypt, the Philistines from Caphtor, a.k.a. Crete, and the Arameans from Kir? Okay, so these, he's talking about hunting the enemies of God, okay, which goes back to Nimrod. Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod's a mighty warrior for the Lord. That's in Genesis. It's also in the Old Testament. He talks about the waters, okay. The waters, they represent the people, right? The flood was figurative. It was a flood of peoples, nations, multitudes, languages. It was a flood of spirit that wiped out the wicked, and they became the walking dead. That's why there's so many evil people on earth. He didn't wipe out the evil people and then start with good people. In terms of physically, he wiped them out spiritually. That's why narrow is the way to life. Or else, everyone would be the offspring of Noah, so to speak, and there'll be good people everywhere instead of evil people everywhere. Okay. So again, he says, are not you Israelites the same to me, keyword same to me, as the Cushites, right? Were you not kind of working together and being trained together? Did not Moses get taken into the royal house of Egypt? Taken from the water, right? Moses means to draw from the water. And he learned the ways of the Egyptians. It says in Acts, right? He became a man who was mighty in action and speech, right? He became a martial arts, right? He was a mighty warrior. He killed the Egyptian. He he defended, I believe it was the Midianite women from these bandits, from these thieves, from these ruffians, right? He was a warrior, and he didn't hesitate to speak his mind and to command people to do the work of God. And in this warrior spirit, he went up the mountain, right? There's Sinai, there's Horeb, and he received the commandments from God. Surely the eyes of the sovereign Lord are on the sinful kingdom. I will destroy it from the face of the earth, yet I will not totally destroy the descendants of Jacob, declares the Lord. What I was saying earlier, right? That he's going to destroy the vast majority of them, and a small amount of them are going to be gathered to be taken away from evil, like it says in Isaiah 57. In Isaiah, it says Isaiah is the son of Amos. I think they spelled it with a Z. The Z and the S are often interchangeable in various, you might say, occult wordplay. It's hard to say what exactly the code is in the Bible or why they translate it that way. I'm not quite sure about that. But for whatever reason, I don't think it's a coincidence that they say Isaiah is the son of Amos. Okay. For I will give the command, and I will shake the people of Israel among all the nations as grain is shaken in a sieve, and not a pebble will reach the ground. All the sinners among my people will die by the sword. All those who say disaster will not overtake or meet us. Now, how are they saying it? They're saying it by their actions, by worshiping Baal, by maybe not worshiping Baal and worshiping another deity, or going to a festival, a Jewish festival, and not loving God with all their heart, like it says in Isaiah, right? These people are only honoring God with lip service, right? Their hearts are not with God. And the Lord weighs the heart and the motives, is what it says in Proverbs. Israel's restoration. In that day I will restore David's fallen shelter. I will repair its broken walls and restore its ruins, and will rebuild it as it used to be. Now where? He's talking about in the spiritual realm. Because remember, David was struggling with sin. He at some points he was afraid. He let the Jews scare him, and he's praying to God out of fear. We see that in Psalms. We see it in 1st and 2nd Samuel. Okay. At some point he gives in, that same part of him that's weak, gives into the temptation when it comes to Bathsheba, and he sends her husband to die. So he has this kind of evil way about him that Jacob did when he tricked Esau, and Jacob was punished for it. And David's descendants, like Solomon, also shared that weakness, where Solomon had all these wives and concubines, like 1,000 wives and concubines. And he eventually, as the story goes, he goes crazy and causes Israel to be split in two. So they're fuming me, and it kind of makes it harder for me to explain. They're trying to, confuse you about how much I know about this. And I know the essence of the story. And every once in a while I forget some kind of details or something, but I know the essence of what is being said here, and that's what matters most. The greatest commandment is to understand the essence of the Bible. The other things are peanuts compared to it. Okay. To understand it and live it, right? To love God with all your heart. So that they may possess the remnant of Edom and all the nations that bear my name, declares the Lord, who will do these things. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman, and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from the hills. And I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, and never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them. So relative to the reaper and the plowman and the planter, right? It says those who are trying to find their life in this world will be overtaken by those who destroy the world. Okay. And those who destroy the world will also be overtaken. Woe to you, destroying mountain. When you are done destroying, you will be destroyed. That's what it's saying. That's what it's getting at. There's all kinds of cute ways you can interpret this and connect it to things, right? But it's saying when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman, right? You see the grim reaper, for example, with the Sith, okay? And you see that in Revelation where someone who looks like the Son of Man is on a cloud, and he's swinging his sickle and so on and so forth, okay? So when you plow, it's part of the process, right? When you reap, it's part of the process. When you plant, okay, when you tread the grapes to make the wine. So what it's saying here, among other things, is that those who try to find their life in this world, they'll be destroyed, right? That they won't be able to do the process correctly anymore. They'll be struck with confusion, or world went swirling down on the head of the wicked. And those who are taken away, right, they'll rebuild the ruined cities in the spiritual realm, as they'll have purged the spirit of receiving the Spirit of God and obeying God, and His commandments. Because God is demanding this obedience. We see it in Deuteronomy, Leviticus. He's saying obey or else, all throughout the Bible. And we also see that in Judges 3, when God is telling them to obey, and He's training them in warfare. That's why angels are depicted as warriors. So this is like a martial art process, okay, for lack of a better word, because the word martial art is diluted by all the kind of ways it's misused, what have you. But martial is marital scrambled, and I Christ in the bridegroom. Okay, so these things also have implications on reproduction. We see in Isaiah 5:7, okay, where it talks about the nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord, and the vines He delighted in are the people of Judah. And He looked for righteousness and justice, but He heard cries of bloodshed. So the reproductive cycles are thrown off, they're destroyed, they're permanently out of sync, out of whack. They're not in tune with God, and they become the walking dead. This is key in how the Bible ends, right? People aren't supposed to reproduce because they're reproducing abominations. Again, we see that in Revelation 17. Going back to what I said earlier, when Amos said, hey, your wives are going to be prostitutes. You're going to prostitute yourself to the devil and the devil's deities and false idols. Okay, you're going to be like a scared, sniveling prostitute just trying to survive. Okay, mother of prostitutes and abominations. And the word abomination is used in Proverbs, where it says the perverse in heart are an abomination to the Lord, right? Those who pervert the course of justice, who are perverted, who are perverse in heart, who are perverse. Okay, and it goes back to the word P-E-R becomes R-A-P-E, right? It's a play on words, it's wordplay. They're rape verse, rape by deception. Now, I know this last part is kind of confusing. I'm being fumed here. I'm trying to wrap this up quickly. I went way over time. To make a long story short, the people who keep reproducing in this world are reproducing abominations and prostitutes. And Babylon is like a system. It's a nation that's a point of reference for evil, okay, that takes over the world. Okay, that spirit of evil, that evil spirit that was in Babylon, that spirit of idolatry, Baal and Babylon. Baal and Beld and Babel and Babylon are connected. And baby lion. And baby lion, where the lion is the devil. It's in Peter, 1st or 2nd Peter, where it says the devil is a roaring lion seeking who he may devour. And there's a reason why Jesus Barabbas was called Jesus Barabbas. So there's two Jesus. One is Jesus Barabbas and one is Jesus. And they're saying give us Barabbas by their actions. The word Barabbas is a play on words for Bar Abbas, which means, father, Abba. So they're saying to ban Abba and to be Ra. Ra in Hebrew means evil. So they're saying that they want their fathers and the fathers of their children, when they give their daughters away in marriage, they want themselves, their fathers, their grandfathers, their descendants to be evil fathers, evil patriarchs, evil patriarchal lines. Thus, the snake in the garden is a phallic symbol, the family tree, okay, the fig tree, the clothes from the fig tree, which makes clothes like, the fine linen, and stands for the righteous acts of the saints in Revelation. Thank you. Okay, really quickly here, I want to bring up Amos 8 really briefly. I'm way over time. So Amos 8 is titled A Basket of Fruit. We go down to verse 11. It says, the days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land. Now let's stop there. If it wasn't for the rest of the verse, a lot of people would be crying about how it's talking about people being hungry and thirsty, right? And they will be swearing that they're right and that they think that I'm magically wrong. Okay? But what does the rest of it say? Not a famine of food or a thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. So again, let's read this here. The days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land. Not a famine of food or a thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. Thus, the pattern that you see here, like you see in the New Testament, when it says, by this, he meant the Spirit, when Christ in the book of John is talking about water. The narrator or the author says, by this, he meant the Spirit. We also see in John, I want to say it's chapter 16 or so, where it says, though I have been speaking figuratively, right? Though I have been speaking figuratively, a time will come when I will speak plainly, when I will tell you plainly about the Father. So he says, I've been speaking figuratively the whole time. Just like Amos has been speaking figuratively. That's why we see in Revelation 17, where it says the water stands for the people, the nations, the multitudes, the languages. Part of the Spirit of God is speaking the language of God, which is universal, pinpoint, and moral precision, the way, the truth, and the life. And Amos 8 also talks about the dishonest scales that makes God angry, and how they're skimping on the measure. And they're doing things like telling females to shun me, and so on and so forth, because they're sexually immoral, which is what it says in Revelation. Outside the gate are the sexually immoral. Pretty straightforward. Why do people lie about God? For money, for females, okay, for social status. They can feel important, and they look so stupid, like George Washington in his inauguration, right? Some kind of fairy Freemason-like pose. He thinks he's important when someone's not a righteous and moral warrior. And they exert power over people like they're naturally chosen or something. They look so stupid. It's like Bart Simpson trying to look like they're chosen by God. Harry Potter, because the Lord is a warrior. It's a Royal African Falcon martial order. Okay? For example, I've never in my life heard anyone argue that someone in the special forces is magically, freaking miraculously, I mean, obviously, they're not, chosen by God. I've never heard anyone make that argument. Because we all know that it's got to be a martial artist, a Royal African Falcon martial artist, a certain type of person. It's not going to be Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan or Jet Li, okay? It's not going to be Wesley Snipes. It's going to be somebody who has a certain divine, transcendent, martial way about them naturally. Not some worm who's hooked to the machine, who's doing some propaganda campaign for the governing class. And that's so stupid, so cheesy. Not worms who are yoked to the people who change the sound of my voice, okay, in various ways, who change my pictures. Some of the pictures they change extremely drastically. And some they just subtly there. They try to make it seem like some kind of Power Ranger looking, some kind of LGBT circus person. So they caused me to speak in a certain tense that I didn't mean to use. I'm just going to leave it there. What I was saying is I was thinking of it like in the past tense when I was younger. Say, what are we looking for, right? What we're looking for is here now. It's me. Clearly. And I'm not like anybody else. Not even other black martial artists of African descent, mulatto martial artists, whatever. I'm me. My kingdom is not of this world. But God created man in Africa, so it's an ancient African spirit we're looking. Not an ancient serpent spirit. No, not witchcraft or lying. It's the Ancient of Days. Like it says in the book of Daniel, the Ancient of Days, right? The sun as a symbol of the bridegroom. The Royal African Falcon, right? The falcon flying high, closest to the sun. The sun order, if you will, but, Sunday, but really not worshiping the sun, but the sun is a symbol of God that makes it clear to you that there's something divine going on here, unless you're a complete idiot. When you look at atheists and people who are agnostics, they're always these shallow people that lack a certain sense, a certain presence of mind. They're not perceptive. They're not astute. They don't understand what's going on. They're like, Shaggy Doo from Scooby-Doo and Ren and Stimpy and Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, right? And the Tasmanian Devil and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and what have you. Donald Duck. They're like these people who don't understand life. They're not in tune with God and nature. And they're like, I don't believe that. Show me it scientifically. And they just don't get it.